every night with the Dodgers winning. So everyone,
So
welcome.
hopefully they'll stop. Yeah, hello.
Well, hopefully Dodgers just sweep, so it's only 2 more nights of fireworks. You know what I'm saying?
No. Tonight's big. Tonight's it.
Yeah. So how we doing, guys? It's Monday, October 28th. We are. This is what I guess this would be like the 1 week mark for the NBA season today after this slate. So we're feeling pretty good. Have a couple of wins in our belt. Took down the Minimax last night. Shout out to, was it Brad Miller in the chat? Maybe if you're in there, reveal yourself. Whoever asked about David Roddy, because shout out to you. 0.1% owned. He didn't like super go off, but he did just enough to get the victory. So that worked out pretty well. Nick, how we doing?
Good, man. Good. Yeah, we were just talking sports equinox today. I mean, we got all the major sports going. But yeah, NBA, big slate. 9-game over on FanDuel, I think it is, and 7 on DK. Or is it 9 and 11? I don't know. There's a lot to talk through. Some big injury news is finally starting to break. It's funny. I feel like this season, more than others, teams are healthy. Like, usually we're going into the year with a bunch of guys playing limited minutes, but that's finally starting to happen now. I feel like more than ever, like we've been struggling to find value even on these bigger slates. So hopefully some things start to open up.
Yeah, and we did get a piece of news just before the stream started. DeAndre Hunter's out, so we'll take a look at Atlanta. They're probably going to be the chalk tonight, but we'll have to see how the ownership shape out. And then we got a late questionable tag on Franz Wagner, so that's going to be big news. The coach said he's going to try and go through shoot around. He's at the arena. So we'll see, but that's going to open up a couple more value spots if he ends up missing the game. And it's the first game, so we should know in like the next half hour during the stream. So Unicorn Love, good evening. All right, figured out how to get comments on the screen. Nice. Money time. Yes, it is. Justin, fellas. Another good day for NBA hoops. Absolutely. Courtney, cashed and shipped 100 man yesterday. Yeah, I saw that lineup, dude. Really good ship, man. Courtney's mainstay in our Discord, always asking questions. And I mean, it's working. Won a tournament yesterday, so love to see it. Heath, what's up? So, Nick, starting with the slate, I already mentioned Atlanta. I mean, is that just the starting point for the slate?
Yeah, in particular in the front court. I mean, we talked earlier. I'm mostly on FanDuel tonight. I know you're more so on DK, so we'll have a nice balance on the show. But Clint Capella, even on a one center site like FanDuel at 5,300, very tough to get away from. Still waiting on a few bits of news there, DeAndre Hunter in particular, but we already know Okongwu is going to be out. Oh no, Hunter's out as well. Last I checked, looking at this injury report. So yeah, they're thin in the front court. So Capella looks tremendous. I mean, Jalen Johnson, a guy who hasn't been shooting the ball that well, he is touching it a lot, though, seeing plenty of usage. I think we're due to regress to a positive outcome there with him. And what better spot to maybe find that than a matchup against the Wizards? Dyson Daniels, price finally up on FanDuel. He's pushing 7K now, kind of tough to get to over here. But over on DK, I mean, again, a little bit too cheap at 5,600. So we haven't even talked about Trae Young, but this is a very, very appealing team. Again, we've been kind of scrounging for value. We have a lot of it opening up in all different price ranges here, but Clint Capella, kind of the staple for a lot of my lineups tonight for sure.
Yeah, Clint Capella was coming out as my highest exposed player. I'm trying to change it because it's kind of scary, even with Okongwu out. So he's chalk because we can predict the minutes more tonight, and 54 and 5,300 is the incorrect price for the 31 projected minutes. But I don't know. He's the easiest center play on the slate. I am going to give you a pivot in Wendell Carter. He's in the first game. He's only 5K, even better if Franz Wagner sits. But I just think his minutes, he's been losing a couple minutes every game. So I think he's going to be a pretty solid pivot to Clint Capella. You mentioned Ricochet. 42 and 3,900 is probably incorrect. He got up to 26 or 27 minutes yesterday, and he actually looked pretty good. So I'm kind of surprised that his ownership is showing this low. I'm pretty sure this is going to come up.
Yeah, with the Hunter news, I think it's going to come up a little bit. Again, all these guys are going to be appealing here. We're still scraping for value. Someone else to bring up, our old friend Larry Nance. I mean, he is going to probably be playing the backup center minutes here. I don't know. I don't know that he gets Capella's usual run. Like if Capella's playing 30, I don't know that we can really bank on 20 plus for Nance. But we have him for 21. And I mean, you're not going to find many plays that are min price on both sites that are as good as him tonight. Even if he plays a few less minutes, I mean, generally a point per minute fantasy producer when he is on the floor, going across the many, many teams that he's played for over the past few years. So I'm fine getting to some Larry Nance. More so, I would say on DK, but on FanDuel, you actually get power forward eligibility for him. So he's pretty interesting to me as well. Hoping to see maybe that ownership stay down where it's at right now, around 9% on FanDuel.
What do you think about playing him and Capella in lineups together?
Yeah, I mean, there is some like game theory there where you wouldn't want to do it, but I think if you're like, who are the min price plays on the slate you're actually willing to play? Nance is one of the only ones right now, and unless we get a lot of other value to open up, I'm actually comfortable doing it. Again, they're not going to share the floor very much. And Nance, I mean, historically, isn't even really a center. I mean, this is a guy who's played the wing. I mean, he's kind of a power forward who's just a little bit bigger than a lot of the other guys down there. So I don't think they're going to share minutes on the floor. I'd have to look at Popcorn and Machine been getting minutes with other centers. But with Hunter out as well, I mean, there's going to be some kind of trickle down. Johnson could be playing on the wing a little bit more. Maybe he is on the floor at times with Capella. And like I said, even if he's not, that only helps both their upsides. So again, two guys who are over a fantasy point per minute. Usually, you're getting 30 minutes for a 5K player, 20 minutes for a 3K player. That's exceeding value in my book. So happy to play them together, even though it's a little bit counterintuitive.
And how many Hawks for GPPs? So we just kind of said like it's okay to play these two together, but now I'm looking at what if the lineup also wants to play Ricochet, and then we have all the value to pay up for Trey or Jalen Johnson. So I mean, are we getting up to 4 Hawks in some of our lineups tonight?
Yeah, FanDuel's nice in that they limit you to 4. You can't play 5. So I'd get up to 4 pretty comfortably. On DK, I mean, do I want to play 5 in one of the early games too? It kind of handicaps your ability to pivot as the slate wears on. Maybe not. I'd be pretty comfortable with 4 over there, though, just knowing that one's going to be Capella in all likelihood. Then one's either a Punta for Shasher or Nance. And again, I mean, Daniel's still super mispriced in my opinion. I think he should be pushing 6K on both sites. FanDuel kind of over adjusted. DK, I think he's going to continue to climb a little bit though, regardless of whether the usage goes up.
And since we talked about all the other guys, I just want to mention Garrison Matthews did get there yesterday. No one played him. I'm pretty sure he got there anyway. Let me double check. Yeah, 25 fantasy points. The 22 minutes is really strong. Got 9 shot attempts. And then David Roddy's not even showing up in the model today, but he also played 20 minutes. Shout out to David Roddy. I think the guy's name was Brad. Brad, if you're in the chat, hey, just say what's up in the chat, man. I owe you a beer. But 4 for 5 shooting, that's pretty, hard to sustain. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, didn't get any stock. So he is there too. I mean, I only had a few percent yesterday. I'll probably just have a few percent today, but I think you can say the same for these bottom guys. And I don't know, maybe Nance wasn't as obvious yesterday.
Oh, that's fair.
A couple questions in chat. With Hauser ruled out, do we expect more minutes for Tatum tonight? I don't see why Tatum's minutes would be affected.
No, I mean, yeah, that's more than anything. Yeah, we've kind of seen that consistently. Like with Porzingis out, even if this team's entirely healthy, you're usually going to get a good game out of one of Pritchard or Hauser, rarely both. This is one of the more competitive games they've had on their schedule so far. We've seen a lot of blowouts with Boston. Pritchard's nice in that he's kind of a hybrid. He's already a part of the rotation. Usually he plays into the 4th. I think we're going to see that less and less this season. But yeah, I don't really project a blowout here. So I'm fine getting to some Pritchard. And again, Tatum's just a great play regardless. He's not going to play more minutes than he normally does. He already plays, 36 a night? Like, you're not going to really ask for more out of him than that. If anything, maybe Horford sees a slight tick up. Not enough for me to really want to get to him aggressively, but what it really does is kind of solidifies Pritchard as a value play.
Murray and Van Vliet on FanDuel, 7,300 cheap. Van Vliet has not looked good this season.
It's just weird. Yeah, go ahead. You go first. But
I was going to ask you what you thought about Van Vliet because I expect him to be better than this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those teams now. And I mean, we deal with this with Boston. Like, I don't know that it's the best example to compare it to, but like, there's going to be nights where Van Vliet goes for 50. There's going to be nights where he goes for 20, though. And we see that with guys like Jaylen Brown on Boston. Like, now that he's playing next to Sengun, Jalen Green, another guy who demands a ton of usage. I mean, they have a lot of good players there. But what that does for us in DFS, and against a pretty decent defensive team in the Spurs, it kind of caps how many guys can maybe get there in terms of a ceiling. So I don't mind Van Vliet, but I would not be playing him in lineups with Green or Sengun personally. I'd only want one of maybe that quote-unquote big 3. But again, I mean, it's kind of a situation like with Boston. Like, unless it's just a ridiculous matchup and other guys are out, you don't want to play too many of the high usage starters because they do tend to kind of take away from one another. And Van Vliet seems to kind of secede that upside to the likes of Sengun and Green more often than the other two do. So he's kind of third if I'm ranking them in terms of upside, but he's also the cheapest. So I definitely see getting to him as a tournament play. I just know it is a wide range of outcomes, and I wouldn't be playing him with Green or Sengun.
Yeah, this ownership's actually kind of surprising to me. So projections have and it's only 3 game sample. We shouldn't be overreacting to him playing poorly over 3 games, but
Right.
I don't know. I see this ownership, especially on FanDuel, and I kind of just want to get under it. And I'd be more interested in taking tournament shots on Green or Sengun at these ownerships.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Murray's the chalk tonight, and he's the same price. I think in cash games, that's your guy. Much rather
Yeah,
than Jamal Murray. Um, but yeah, man. I mean, if no one's playing Sengun, I think a big part of that is that everyone's loading up on Capella, understandably so. I would rather get to Sengun, but I don't mind paying a bit of a premium to get contrarian to get to Jalen Green. Coming off back-to-back games where he went over 40 FanDuel points, including one in this exact same matchup against the Spurs, 33 minutes, 10 for 22 from the field, took 10 threes, only 3 went in, but a couple more of those fall. I mean, he's the type of player you really want to have in your lineup. So if Green's going to be the lower round of the two, even for a bit of a price increase, I'd rather go to Jalen Green here.
Alex Sarr, good timing on the question because I wanted to look at the other side of that Atlanta game.
Yeah.
Last note on Atlanta, Washington is the second worst defensive team. They're actually tied for the worst with the Knicks, surprisingly, in terms of defensive efficiency. And Washington they finished last season as the fastest team in the league, and through a few games so far, they're number 4 this season. So it just solidifies that we want to target Atlanta players tonight. But looking at runbacks from the other side, Alex Sarr, I mean, his price versus Ricochet is not appealing. I'll say that.
Yeah. The other thing with Sarr is he's pretty much the same price, or he's more expensive than Bilal Coulibaly there. And yeah, I mean, Coulibaly, I still can't pronounce this guy's name, honestly. I don't watch many Wizards games. I need to watch more. I might tonight. This is a good environment. Actually, I won't. The World Series is on. All that being said, I mean, he's kind of become this offensive player now. He is taking more shots. We saw 16 shots last time out against Cleveland for Coulibaly. I mean, this is a guy we'd kind of put in the Thibault category last year of like defense first. Sometimes he's going to get there, but he's taking shots now, even with Poole and Kuzma on the floor. So I'd rather go to him. Sarr, though, I mean, he's cheap enough, and you do get the forward eligibility. It's just like, I don't know. The minutes aren't necessarily there. He hasn't played more than 25 in a game yet this season. I don't think you can comfortably project him more than 24 with any sort of confidence. So I'd rather play a guy in Bilal who we have closer to 34 minutes, 32.4 to be exact. I mean, minutes are kind of king, especially early in the season when it's tough to know exactly what these guys are going to be doing on a night-to-night basis.
And if you've been watching the stream, you know that I've been telling you guys to play more Bilal Coulibaly. He's been phenomenal. Kind of similar to Tumani Kamara, but with a little bit more expected usage, I think. So he's not at 5K yet on DraftKings. Even at the 27%, I definitely want to get over the field. It's just for 32 minutes, maybe the Hawks were getting a cheaper price, but this is the best play from Washington, in my opinion. And then I do want to ask you about Carlton Carrington because this guy's been getting jammed in my lineups the past couple of slates, and he's a rookie, so there's an adjustment period. He's not really pulling any ownership today. Is this a spot to take the shot on him, assuming he ends up starting again?
I mean, I'm selling it, honestly. I mean, I think we have enough other value now starting to open up. I mean, I put him in the category of like a Keon Ellis last year. Trying to think of some of these other guys. Javon Carter. It's like backup point guards that are going to be in the rotation night to night. If you're desperate for value, you could kind of squeeze them in there. But until we see him start to spike some upside, I don't necessarily know that I could go there with any sort of confidence. Had a pretty good game last time out against Cleveland, but again, only 25 minutes. Didn't even get you to 20 fantasy points. And when I'm talking about guys floating around 4K on both sites, I want to get to at least 20. That's kind of I don't know, a low bar to climb over, and he just hasn't really hit it yet. So until I see more from him, it's good to see you starting, but that hasn't really given him more minutes necessarily. So I don't know. That's a no for me personally. I'd rather get to some of these vets we know that can actually spike an upside. And I mean, this is a good matchup, but until I see it, I'm like, I want to see it first before I get there. I don't know. It seems okay, but I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, so Koulibaly is the player I'm getting the most of from the Wizards, but then I am getting a decent amount of Kuzma and Jordan Poole. I'm slightly over the field on both of these guys on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last year, Poole came out after that trade and was terrible, like so bad. And Kuzma was kind of running things for them. They still had Denny at the time, who was obviously a big part of that offense. This season, it's kind of flipped. Like Kuz has not been putting up numbers. I mean, he's kind of succeeding some of this usage to the likes of Koulibaly, Sarr, etc. Poole has been great though, so I'm getting to a lot of Poole here. I'll try to get over the field on him. Don't mind Kuzma. I mean, it's a good price. We've seen him up over 8K when he is playing well. Who's to say that doesn't come tonight in a decent matchup here against a thin Atlanta front court? But for me, I'm more bullish on Poole, which feels insane to say considering how bearish we were on him for most of last season.
Smitty in the chat, FanDuel released a second pick and roll, likely going to be some overlay. Good shout there. Get that overlay, guys. How would we rank the Hawks, assuming Capella's a lock? Capella's not a lock. He's probably one of the best plays to make from that team and on the slate in general, but I don't think anyone is a lock today. There's still he's not a lock.
No, you can't call him a lock. And part of it's because the Wizards could go pretty small. Like, I don't know what to project for Jovel's minutes right now, coming up back-to-back games where he only played 20. Obviously, Sarr's going to be in there, but, I mean, you could do a lot of things defensively against him. So, I don't know. I like our projection for Capella. If you're playing cash games, Capella's number one, and he is a lock. But in tournaments, I'm probably going to be over the field. I will rank him number one. I'd rank Daniels 2 on DK. He's like way down the list for me on FanDuel though, where he's almost 7K now. And then Trey and Jalen are kind of like 2-3 for me. But yeah, Daniels is up there for me on DK tonight. On FanDuel, not so much. I just think the price adjustment's kind of a little ridiculous. 6,900 just seems insane.
For me right now, I have a ton of Capella and then followed by Larry Nance, then Trey Young. And I've been over the field on Jalen Johnson every day. It would be terrible to not be over the field, and he goes off today. It's a really good spot for him. I mean, we've been saying that every day, and he's just killing half my lineups every day. But I'm going to go back to him. 21% on DK seems good. 35% on FanDuel is a lot.
Yeah.
But
especially with the 2 extra games. I mean, we got to keep in mind, too, when we're talking about ownerships between the two sites tonight, you have 2 late games on FanDuel that you don't on DK. And they're pretty high total spots. I mean, Lakers, Suns, Blazers, Kings, not that we're pulling a ton of value from there. We'll talk about your boy Kamara at some point, I'm sure. But if something seems over-owned on FanDuel tonight, like, put that in bold in your head because there's extra around.
DK Strother, if you expect blowout, or Jaden Hardy or Cam Whitmore. So I just want to make sure this spread is reasonable. We don't really project blowouts unless the spread starts getting to like 16 points. And in an 8-point game, like you could look at this game and say, yeah, Denver is going to blow out Toronto, which is definitely possible, but Vegas doesn't think so. And so when we start making decisions like that and changes in our projections and exposures, projecting for blowout, we're just going to end up making way more mistakes than it's ever going to benefit us. With that said, Julian Strother, we haven't projected for 18 minutes. So this is a player who, and the problem with him really is just that, like Nick said earlier, all the Atlanta value that we have. But when I look at Julian Strother, a player who could get there during his regular minutes and then obviously benefits from blowout, but we don't want to play him just hoping for those blowout minutes.
Right, exactly. And yeah, I mean, I don't see how you could project a blowout here. The Nuggets have been terrible, and historically they play tight against teams on the road. I mean, they're not in Denver here. Toronto hasn't been great either. Obviously, quickly likely out again. But yeah, just tough for me to really expect blowout here, and you're not going to want to get to Strother with much confidence. I mean, I do really like Jokic and Murray tonight. Don't get me wrong. Christian Brown has been playing pretty well as well, but to get to some of these value pieces where you need things to kind of get out of hand, I just can't project that right now. I know Toronto's bad. I know Denver's going to be a contender by the end of the year, but we got to kind of live in the now. And right now, I mean, Denver just hasn't been playing great basketball.
Jose, can we play Rissisher, Capella, and Nance in the same lineup? Yeah, of course. In small fields, you probably should, and then in larger fields, maybe you can start to pivot away. But I mean, we've been talking about the Hawks all show, and they're all great value plays. So yeah, we should be playing Hawks tonight. Monk 5,800 on FanDuel. He's not on the DraftKings slate, right? So on the DraftKings night slate, I think Malik Monk is one of the best plays at 5,300, 5,800 on FanDuel, 14% ownership. Did you get to him today?
Yeah, I mean, Monk, I kind of have a love-hate with. I mean, because you never really know with him. I mean, he's so scoring dependent, and he comes off the bench. If this game were to get out of hand, and this is one of the wider spreads, again, we're not projecting blowouts, he's the guy who misses the entire fourth quarter because he subs in so late. So yeah, I mean, his floor is lower than other plays in this range. The price is fine. I'm fine mixing him in. I wouldn't have him in cash builds or anything small field, but in large field tournaments, Malik Monk could definitely spike an upside, and this is a pretty good matchup too here against Portland. So fine with it. Wouldn't say I'm like rushing to get to him though.
Sorry if you guys saw me shaking my head. I wasn't shaking my head at what Nick was saying. I just hit my tooth with a drink. Might hurt me, Mr. Tarian, but going to fade JJ, rather go down to someone like Sochan or Kuz. Yeah, I think that's fine, especially if you're going to play all the other Atlanta value. It probably makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, JJ, like, if there's chalk and it's expensive, like, you should be pretty comfortable fading it more often than you are some of the cheap chalk because, yeah, say you play Nance tonight. He's 3K. He only gets you 13 points. Like, that's not going to ruin your night most of the time. I mean, it may prevent you from getting into first place, but if you pay 8K for something that's chalk and it busts, I mean, then you're really in trouble. But again, we love the Hawks tonight. I don't want to talk down on any of these players, but especially early in the season, I mean, some of this stuff just kind of turns into game theory conversations more than anything else.
We got a few pieces of news. Giannis is in. Emmanuel Quickly's ruled out. We were expecting that. And Franz Wagner is available to play. Unfortunate. So I'm going to have to change back. I planned for him to be out. So easy fix.
Yeah.
Chris, our NFL writer, Chris, 3 or 4 Ks for Judge tonight. I'll take the over 3.5.
I mean, if he has 3, he could have 5 as long as the Yankees win. I'm
What?
I don't even want to talk about this series. Like, my heart just palpitates. But yeah, both games have been so close. He's had opportunities. He's been blowing them. He strikes out more than anyone. It's sad to see. And like, I don't know. I just hope the stadium's cheering for him tonight. We got to get behind him, who he is. I don't want to hear booing in the World Series.
Are the Yankees your number one team?
I mean, pretty much, yeah. It's Yankees, Nets. I love the Nets, but it's like they're lovable losers. They always have been.
Yeah.
The Giants football, it's been a nightmare. The Yankees are the only good team I cheer for. So yeah, the Yankees are kind of my number one team.
I didn't realize that when I was ragging on them and celebrating at the beginning of the show. My bad.
You're good, man. You're good. I don't mind. But yeah, I'm a diehard. I mean, the last time they won, I was still in college. 15 years ago, remember all those games against the Phillies very well, celebrating. We'll just drop one more baseball stat, though. The last 2 World Series that the Yankees and Dodgers played in, the team who went down 0-2 ended up winning both of those World Series. So maybe hope is still alive. But I don't know. I'm coping already, but really pulling for him tonight hard, that's for sure. And the Giants are on, too. It's just too much for me today, man.
Beetle Bump God. I never watched Zachary Roach's play before. Is he a good rebounder? He's an okay rebounder. I don't think he limits Jalen Johnson's ceiling at all. Jalen Johnson has been bad because he's been bad.
Yeah, it's the shot that's not falling for Johnson more than anything. And I mean, he's involved on a lot of these possessions. And like coming into the season with DeJounte Murray out of the picture, like I really thought we'd see a huge spike in his production. It just hasn't come yet. But he's a streaky player offensively. I think we'll get it from him eventually. But tonight, I mean, I am more comfortable fading him than I am, say, Trey, even though Trey's pretty.
Oh, no. All right, guys. So we've talked about the Hawks all show. Ask your questions about the other teams. Let's take a look at the other top plays. Denver, not Denver, Jokic, Luka, Giannis, Tatum, AD. I'm going to throw some bonus in there and then Wemby, even though his OF ranking's a little bit lower. So from the top guys, who's the most appealing to you?
What's that? You cut out for a second, but I think you're asking which of the studs I like best.
Yeah, just from like the top 6 or 7 guys on the model.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic is up there for me for sure. I mean, the matchup with Podol is just really soft. He hasn't been playing well. As much as I talk about how I think this game stays close, I think he could just put the team on his back these next few, like as they need to try to get back into the win column. I mean, he got over 60 fantasy points last time out. Again, I don't want to look at one game sample sizes, but just knowing that those are there, and this is the type of matchup we usually see those from him in. He's excellent to me. Luka, I mean, he's kind of 1B. Obviously, anywhere you can afford him, he's good. He's tougher for me to fit, though, just because there are so many kind of 8 to 9K guards that I like. On DK, it's not more popular. Still sub 10K. He fixed his jump shot, which is obviously important if you're a professional basketball player, but even more so for him. I mean, just looking better out there, consistently finishing around 50-plus fantasy points, and he is way cheaper than these other guys we're listing. So I love Joker here. I can't get to him a ton on FanDuel just because you have one center playing a lot of Capella. Tatum, though, going to get to a lot of him tonight on both sites. I really like the price. I like the dual forward eligibility. And then not to go back to the Hawks, but yeah, Trae Young might be my favorite guard if we're just talking about upside in a vacuum, but he is very popular. So, yeah, I like all these guys we're listing, but Tatum for me, I think probably the most egregiously owned from this.
Yeah, so with Trey Young, I like him too, but the model is saying that we can probably pivot to a bunch of these other guys,
Yeah,
especially
there's so
considering the
many.
ownership. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, so these 0%, let me filter this to DK main. So we still have we have a 0% owned Dame. That seems incorrect. I mean, yesterday his price, I'm pretty sure was a lot better, at least on FanDuel, but 0%. I mean, Boston is probably the second worst
The
team to
hell, man.
target guards against after
Yeah.
OKC. But I don't know. Maybe he should be 0% given we have every other stud. I mean, we have 5 of the 6 highest scoring players in the NBA: Jokic, Luka, Giannis, Wembenyama.
No Cam Thomas. I'm just
No,
kidding.
no SGA. Oh, yeah, Cam Thomas, sure. But someone in the chat asked, "Is this a slate where we want to play 2 top studs, or more one stud and more mid balance build?" So I think the field, given the Atlanta value and other value we have, is probably leaning towards just jamming in 2 of these studs, and I think that's probably fine. I haven't. I mean, I have to rebuild my lineup, so I have no idea what I'm getting to. But I mean, either one is probably okay. To pay up for stars and scrubs, or get that cheap value, pay up for one stud, and then go kind of mid range with find these Jeremy Grant type values around 6K.
Yeah, no, I pretty much feel that you've nailed that. I mean, the thing is, these guys over 11K, like when we're talking about Giannis, Jokic, Luka, it's almost impossible to fit 2 of them and feel good about the rest of your lineup. But there is enough value here to kind of fit maybe one of those guys and someone pushing 10K. Like to fit Jokic and Luka tonight, it's insane. I don't think you should do it. Giannis with either of those two probably shouldn't do it. But if you're talking about one of them with Tatum or one of them with Trey, and those 2 guys I just mentioned ladder, uh, I'm talking over myself. Trey and Tatum are both sub 10K. You could easily fit one of them with a guy who's over 11K. But to pair 2 11K guys, even with the Atlanta value, seems a little bit forced.
And you don't have to play one of these top studs. Like Cade Cunningham
Yeah.
is a stud. Jalen Brunson's a stud. Trey Young, Paolo Banchero, these guys are all studs. And it's way easier to fit 2 of these guys in rather than one of these guys and, just sacrifice a couple of your roster spots. And I did want to point out Cade and Jalen here. Cade at 2%. Miami, it's not the best team matchup, but good GPP play at 2%. I'd like to be over this. And Jalen Brunson, 8,600, 20% owned. 9K on FanDuel at 11%. I think those are probably appropriate too.
Yeah, yeah, totally fine with both. Um, yeah, the 0% on Dame is interesting. It is a terrible matchup, though. Guard's just completely loaded.
Any lean on Hart's availability. I built with him out, but that was based on nothing. I figure it's a lot easier to put him back in than it is to make the adjustments if he's ruled out with not much time.
Yeah, he was like showing that he was hurt during the game last time. But again, I mean, Josh Hart's super tough, and his coaches, he can play. I think they're not the type to err on the side of caution. They'll get him out there. I would lean in, but at the same time, I'm like just pulling that out of thin air. I have no real confident lean either way.
Who gets the bump with no Hart? I saw someone ask about OG earlier, and I really don't think he gets that big of a bump because his usage is still going to be just as low. Maybe he has more rebounding opportunities, but Josh Hart's usage is passing the ball and getting rebounds. And so who absorbs that? It should be Mikal Bridges, if anybody. And his price is cheap enough because he looked bad, but he stopped that dumb hitch in his shot. So 1%, I mean, I would take shots on Mikal Bridges before OG tonight.
Yeah, it's not like Hart's a super high usage player, generally speaking. He does rebound a lot, though. So, like you mentioned, it would help OG a bit. It would also make me more confident getting to some Karl Anthony Towns and feel better about Brunson exposure. Again, it's not like he's the type of guy who's taking tons of stats from these others. But the one other thing I think we got to mention, I think he's questionable as well, so we got to keep an eye on it, is Miles McBride. I mean, McBride coming off the bench has been good, but the minutes have been kind of limited. Thibs likes to run a tight rotation. We know that he trusts McBride to be in there. Maybe he's someone who could get closer to 30 minutes than we usually see. A guy who usually plays 24, 25. So it would actually help McBride maybe a little bit off the bench. I think he would slide into the starting lineup too, which would obviously initially kind of scare you a little bit just because he's sharing usage more with Brunson, but at the same time, those guys play a ton of minutes together anyway. So I think it would help McBride maybe more than anyone.
Let's take a look at value. I'll get to your question in a second, Beetle Bump. But Thugin, our Yahoo guy, how you doing? Nice to see you. Top values on Yahoo and DK. Show Yahoo real quick. You're probably the only person in the chat asking about it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But top values, I mean, Dyson Daniels by a freaking mile. He should not be only $11. It's super wrong. DK values, Dyson Daniels by a mile. Price is more appropriate on DraftKings. Ownership is there. Torian Prince was the top of value. I jammed him yesterday. It didn't work, but he actually leads Milwaukee in minutes played per game. Is that a true fact?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. And I mean, he kind of had a rough going in Boston. Not that you want to chase a Torian Prince revenge game, but I mean, he's there. It's just, again, we talk about these guys like these 3-and-D wings, like they're fine as like a last guy in, but you never feel good about it. So I'm okay getting the Prince. The minutes are there for him, but night to night, I mean, if Dame shot's falling, Giannis is having a good game, usually means Prince isn't doing anything. So I don't know. If you have no other bucks, you want to use him as a last piece in, fine. But can't say I feel great about him.
Well, he was 3,700 yesterday in DraftKings. 4,400 is a lot different.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So the model is telling us he's a pivot from the Atlanta guys, but if you are doing that pivot, this is not something you want to go super hard on. Like you definitely want to play more of Ricochet. And it's like Torian Prince could have a better game than Ricochet tonight, but it's just not going to happen. I don't think it happens often enough to where we want to pivot a lot of our ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you two pivots in that price range I like more. I mean, Christian Brown, shouts out waited, but he's finally getting starter minutes now. He's been doing pretty damn well with them too. And another guy with quickly out, but Agbaji suddenly starting to make noise on the offensive end of the floor as well. Another guy who usually I wouldn't be looking to play much of, but 3 for 5 from 3 against Minnesota, taking more shots per game, getting over that 20 fantasy point mark I talked about when I'm looking for these value plays to do. And again, that's not a good thing if they just get you 20, but if they're not a guy who can get you 20 consistently, I don't even want to play him. So I like Agbaji and Brown probably more than I do Prince as a pivot off some of the Atlanta chalk.
Did Hart get ruled out? I don't think yet. No, we'll definitely get. Well, we actually might not get it before the stream ends. Yeah. David Roddy 3K with Hunter and Okongwu and Bogdanovich out. Yep, we like all the Hawks tonight. Aldama, is JJJ out?
I think he's in. I mean, this rotation has been all over the place. So I think JJ played last game and he still fit in. Aldama did. I mean, I can't make sense of what they're doing there. I think they're still trying to get Edie. His 25, others he's playing 10, and that really kind of creates like a lot of chaos and static in his front court. I mean, Clark was someone we thought we'd be playing more of. He's been terrible. He just signed a huge contract. He's actually been the most consistent of this entire group in the front court, and he's only playing 15 to 20 minutes per night. So I don't know. For me, Aldama probably not, considering the price. Don't mind mixing. Part though is that he does only have center eligibility, I believe, which makes it kind of difficult to get to him.
Let's see if there's any other DK values that were popping out to you.
I mean, I don't know that we can call him value. 5,600 for Jeremy Sochan feels a little bit too cheap.
Definitely, yeah.
Been playing excellent. And then Stefan Castle. I mean, you can't really ever trust Pop with rookies, but it does seem like he likes him. Chris Paul's minutes are going to kind of continue to kind of benefit from that. And it looks like they left Champagne's price where it was. I know he was a huge dud last night. Let's see, 45.53. Yeah, I can't even call him value anymore where he's priced, but Sochan for sure. I'll be mixing him.
I'm going to be well over the field on Sochan, and I'm still going to be well over the field on this 4% on Champagne on DraftKings. With stuff on Castle, I don't know. I kind of expected more. It's a really, really slow start for his NBA career, and I don't understand why 14% of the field is playing him tonight. If he was like a 1-2% owned play like he was last time, then yeah. But again, just play the Hawks guys. I mean, they're all above him on the DK value model.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if he was unowned, which he was kind of earlier in this season, then
Chuck doesn't seem too thrilled with this slate. I don't know how my lineups are going to look. I feel like I have to rebuild everything since before the stream. And so, like, looking at it, I do not like playing chalk. Most of my play is contrarian. And tonight I'm going to eat a lot of the chalk, and it just doesn't feel great. But I do think that's kind of the way to go. Eat the value chalk and then mix up get contrarian with your studs, because the leverage we get from hitting on one of these low owned studs is a lot higher than hitting on a contrarian value piece.
exactly. Yep.
Huff at 4,200. Yeah, this guy got a contract. Congrats to him.
He earned it, man. I mean, he's been playing great. I don't know. I've seen a few stints of him. I think the Houston game I played him, and he did really well. He's kind of a stretch big, and I don't know how long this is going to last, but yeah, I mean, strike while the iron's hot. If he's not going to be popular again, you could play two centers on DK. Not something I'd be doing on FanDuel at 4,800, but on DraftKings, feel free to play a little bit of Huff.
We only have him projected for 12 minutes, and I don't know. I'm gonna push back on that playing a little bit. Why would we play him over any of the Hawks guys like Larry Nance? And it's like, sure, minutes could be a thing, but I think this is just a little too deep today.
That's fair. I will say this: I'd rather play Nance over him, certainly. But if you already have 4 or 5 Hawks and you're looking to get another piece of value, I'd rather play Huff than Edie right now, and I can say that with the utmost confidence.
7-8K is loaded, having difficulty narrowing it down. Murray, Kyrie, Poole, Kuz. Yeah, I'm getting exposure to all of those guys.
Yeah, it really comes down to lineup construction. Like, you're going to find a ton of guards in that range. It's a little bit more difficult to feel great about some of the forwards. But that's kind of the case in every price range. Center's always loaded, guard's always loaded, and then you're kind of dealing with what's left on some of the wings. But I will say Desmond Bane, he's been pretty consistently solid in that mid range. Don't mind getting to him at probably reasonable ownership here tonight. I don't know. Kuz, if he was going to have a good game, I mean, this is the spot for it. But if you're over on FanDuel, I mean, some of these late game guys, we didn't talk about Kamara yet. I think he's too cheap. He has forward eligibility. Rui, he's up to 6K now. I don't think anyone's going to want to pay that for him. Terrible position and probably going to have low ownership. But yeah, just generally speaking, there's a ton of guards to like in that range. If you find yourself liking something like Laurie or something like Kuzma, I'm not as heavy on Kuzma tonight, but I don't know. Just jump on those forwards and try to pay up or pay down at guard if you can, because it's tough to find good forwards in any price range.
Are we getting to any FFV tonight? I just checked my exposures. I have 0% to all Houston right now. And that's not just because I don't like Houston. None of their players at their prices make sense today, I guess.
Yeah, it's just tough for me to get away from Murray or Kyrie, and they're pretty much the same price as FEF, so I'm not getting there much. And then, like I said, I'd rather play low-owned Jalen Green, who's taken way more shots than Fred has, if I am playing something from that Houston backcourt.
Can we rank Levine, Murray, Bane, Irving? So this is a good segue. I think you guys should sign up for occupyfantasy.com. $7 a week. $1 a day gets you access to the model. And so you can check things like this easily, because we're always just going to answer basically with the model. Sometimes there's things the model doesn't pick up and will be, I guess, going beyond the model. But, I mean, you got something for this one, Nick, before we take a look at the model ranking, I guess?
I mean, off the top of my head, Levine Bane, just in terms of like raw point upside, but with forward eligibility. But I think it's Murray 1, Irving 2 on both sides.
Well, say the model has them pretty close, but the order is Murray, Bane, Irving, Zach LaVine.
Yeah, I don't know if like Lonzo Ball's back tonight. I don't really think that matters for these guys necessarily. Like, we've seen some huge games out of Levine and White. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd rank Levine last.
We got some it's not slate changing news yet, but if Ja ends up out, it is kind of slate changing, because now we're getting more Grizzlies value, particularly Scottie Pippen Jr. Late Q tags are usually lean towards them sitting. I mean, we saw Franz is in. I don't know if he was on the morning injury report, but Ja Morant, game time decision. If he's out, I mean, it's pretty much a boost to everyone.
Yeah, I will say this: Java's been questionable. I had the 5:30 injury report up, and he was Q on there. But yeah, it would be a huge boost to everyone, especially Pippen. But get to more Bane certainly, which he'd be someone we boosting in those rankings we just gave.
Yeah, even if Ja Morant is in, the model has Bane ranked higher than him tonight with a much better value score on both sites.
I like it.
On FanDuel, do we need to roster anyone from the 7 o'clock game? So in general, no. But for today specifically, what is, I don't even have FanDuel pulled up. What is the 7 o'clock game,
Orlando,
Nick?
Indiana is the 7 o'clock.
Orlando, Indiana, or I'm sorry, he's Pacific time, so the late game, Lakers, Phoenix, and Portland, Sacramento. I'm assuming that's what you're asking. Or
I think
actually, no. Maybe you're right. You're right.
Yeah, if you skip the early game, you could pivot. If Franz is in, no. If
Yeah.
Franz is out, Suggs and Bonchero become very valuable. So
Yeah,
I'd say no with Franz in.
Yeah, no one's a must play there. Conchar's out. Ricochet boost on FD. I mean, he already looks great. I don't know if that's asking before or after Hunter. Thoughts on Christian Brown? He's better than I thought he'd be.
Yep. And providing spacing. I think they're still trying to figure it out. Not really taking as many threes as maybe you'd want, but he does everything else. So he's still filling the stat sheet. Fine getting to him.
Before we build our DK dummy, let's take a look at FanDuel value real quick. I mean, we've been talking about the Hawks guys, but Nick, were you looking at like Aaron Gordon, Kobe White, Nurk, Pirtle?
No Nurk. Center again. If you're not playing Capella, like I'm paying up. Like if I'm not playing Capella tonight, I'm getting up to Jokic for the most part. Maybe some Cat if Hart is out. Not crazy about the matchup. But yeah, let me just sort here on my screen as well. Yeah, I mean Aaron Gordon's good. Again, it's tough to find forwards. If you're comfortable in that kind of 6K range, probably one of the safer plays. 17% owned. He is drawing ownership. So I don't know that you're really getting all that different with it. Tough one is PJ Washington. Really cheap on both sides. Probably not going to get there right now. The model tends to like him a lot. He just hasn't been shooting the ball well. But yeah, man, it's tough in the mid range. Like it's really Atlanta for the most part. I did bring up a few guys. I don't mind Brown. I think Agbaji. I'm guessing the model doesn't like him. I want to check that out real quick. Yeah, the model is not really a fan. 0% owned though, coming off the bench with quickly out. He's actually been consistently hitting value for his price. Fine getting to him. Pippen would be the top value play on the board if Jaw's out, so just keep that in mind. And then I brought him up on DK. He's more expensive on FanDuel, but I think So Chan, if you're in that Aaron Gordon range, probably my favorite power forward play tonight, all things considered. I mean, you're paying a little bit more at 6K flat, but yeah, just totally fine with that, especially Wemby's minutes kind of being all over the place.
And I like that play too. And I just want to mention Wemby's at like pretty low ownership, so this is that pivot in the pay-ups I was talking about. But on DraftKings today, who's the first player in your lineups? I guess I'll start with the Hawks, right?
Capella.
Yeah, Capella. I think we want to throw Nance in here. We trying it or Ricochet?
I mean, Daniels would be next for me, but then
okay. Let's do Daniels at shooting guard.
Yeah, but then Ricochet.
All right, and then do we want to throw in the min-price Nance? Just run 4 Hawks.
I guess.
Yeah, let's see how it looks, and I don't know. We probably want to run someone back from Washington, but it's not mandatory.
It would be Bilal.
Bilal, yes, good call. All right, so this lineup did not have Trae Young. So are we wanting to pay up? I mean, we have 9K left over for 3 different spots. We can absolutely get to 2 of these pay up studs. Who's your number 1 option?
Let me just take a quick look at ownership. I like Tatum at 12%, but none of these guys are popular on DK, it seems.
So we plug in Tatum. It leaves us 8,600 for a point guard and utility.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. We could Brunson?
Sure.
Still leaves us 8,600.
But I like him.
Yeah, Hallie, Cat. Siakam or instead of
Do we
Brunson.
have enough for the run back with Mitchell?
Donovan Mitchell is a point guard on DraftKings.
I always like him in the Garden.
Mitchell and Brunson, we're short 100, but there's definitely an adjustment that can be made here to make that work. I like that call too. We didn't really talk about the
Mitchell
Cavs
loves
today.
Yeah, there's like this narrative that he secretly has always wanted to be a Knick, and I don't know how true that is or what. But most shooters play well in the Garden, but he's one of those guys for sure.
So I'm plugging Luka real quick. I mean, even with Luka and Tatum, you still have 5,900 for the utility, which is a lot of players here. I mean, we mentioned Sochan. Easy game.
Perfect. That's a good lineup.
Was there anything else you wanted to mention before we got out of here?
No, again, just keep an eye on the news. Obviously, the Jaw stuff is very, very important. I don't know. And again, FanDuel, you have those 2 late games. I think Kamara is a really good value play. Not much else from Portland I'm looking at. DeRozan, I think, again, forward's tough to fill tonight. Find myself getting to him a little bit more than other folks from that game. And then we got Lakers Suns. Bradley Beal, I believe, is Booker and Durant would benefit. So keep an eye on that piece of news. And then guys like Reeves have been playing really well for the Lakers. Rui, again, the price is up. I'm fine getting to him. And if I think you mix him in. But as always, just keep an eye on the news. Things change so fast in the NBA. You never really know. All the more reason to get access to the data.
Spaniard, wait, what's the most Hawks in a DK line? Well, the max allowed is 5, and I'm not going to put any restrictions, so I probably end up with some lineups with 5. But if I'm like hand building, it's kind of hard to want to play more than 4, I think.
Yeah, I like 4. I think the first 4 we had it. Nance is still risky again because I don't know how many minutes we need from him against Washington. Personally, I'm fine getting there. But yeah, I think 4 is a good number. 5, if you're feeling really frisky.
Well, guys, it is our time. Smitty is in the Discord today. Instructions on how to join that are in the description below. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks.
Go Yankees.